This is by far my favorite chapter. It was um, it's what I did my dissertation on, um, and I just truly think it's a beautiful chapter. And so when you hear that and you're like, "Shit, shutting, why are you calling it a beautiful chapter?" It's my very nature as an economist. I love prices. Prices. What's nice about a price, and this is not me selling capitalism or selling the free market system or markets in general. The reason why I like prices is because they are a way to allocate things impartially, meaning no favoritism, nothing, it's a price. And either you have the willingness and ability to pay that price or you don't. And it can be unfair, right? If someone deserving doesn't have the income to go to the best hospital or to the best school. Um, but it's not the price that made that, right? I mean, it's not a person that made the decision. It's just the circumstances in general. But what's even cooler about prices from the for the perspective of me and for many of you is that it creates an incredibly interesting business problem: how to find the right price. People complain a lot about airline prices and how they seem very unfair. Yet they're actually incredibly um, transparent. The challenge for a business, any business, is to obviously earn as much profit as possible. But as we saw in the previous chapter, one of the challenges is getting people to pay different prices and not the same price, right? Because the thing we must always adhere to, again, is that if we want to sell more, we have to lower the price. And what we're trying to do in this chapter is set it up so that we don't have to lower the price to everyone. And so, what we're going to really do in this chapter, and I think this is the chapter that has actually the most slides of any of the, yeah, it's like 70 slides. Um, what we're going to do in this chapter is basically look at the theory of all the different ways that we could charge customers prices. And there's obviously a lot of applications for this topic. So let's start. So, when a firm tries to charge customers different prices, what they're trying to do is they're trying to extract consumer surplus. Let's remind ourselves of what consumer surplus is. Consumer surplus is that feeling that you got a good deal. That's probably the best way to put it. It's the fact that you paid less than your maximum willingness to pay. Your maximum willingness to pay being what's called the reservation price. So there's kind of a graph here, but let me just redraw it here. Let me insert a new slide here. It's that if I had a typical demand curve here, each of these points, any of these points along the demand curve, are all reservation prices. My maximum willingness to pay. So the very first customer is willing to pay an incredibly high price, and so on and so forth. What do people actually pay? Well, in a normal market circumstance, they're going to pay the equilibrium price. Thus emerges that difference between the highest price they were willing to pay and what they actually paid. And the next customer is going to have a surplus, and so on and so forth, such that the consumer surplus is the area below the demand curve to the price. Again, it's the feeling that you got a good deal. Now, what would be frustrating for the firm is leaving that consumer surplus on the table, leaving it with the customer. Think what happened with that first customer. Let's just say, let's throw in some imaginary numbers here. The first customer was willing to pay $1,100, but actually paid $300. What I would want to do in my business is find a way to extract that $800. It's not necessarily profit, although it'll obviously contribute to it. No, it's going to be um, the fact that I'm not going to lose that first customer by raising the price above $300. What's going to happen? If I raise the price above $300, I'm going to lose other customers like this customer and so on and so forth. I'm not going to lose that first customer. And one of the things we could also try to do is also try to find ways not to lose that $300 customer as well. Okay, so let's go back to this. So that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to capture consumer surplus, charge that higher price, and the customer isn't going to necessarily be upset. The price is going to be higher, but the customer is still going to feel satisfied. Okay. So, what I alluded to here was that I want to do something called price discrimination. It's actually one of the rare times that discrimination is a good thing. Um, it means charging different customers different prices for the exact same good. Um, basically, you as a company would have to engage in research to find out what that customer's maximum willingness to pay would be. Um, for the first degree price discriminator, you will have as many prices as you have customers. Um, my undergraduate and even graduate education was all at a private school. Pretty expensive. Notre Dame, it's a pretty expensive school. But, there's a list price for the university. I don't even know what it is. I'm sure it's much higher than it was when I was there, but I think just tuition. Is like $40,000 or $50,000, some insane amount. Well, who's paying that $40,000 or $50,000? Well, there are some, really rich kids and whatnot that are paying $40,000 or $50,000. Well, what's the rest of us schmucks doing? We're filling out a financial aid form, which is determining how much we're willing to pay, or how much at least we're able to pay. So by filling out the FAFSA, the financial aid form, in some sense, the university is determining how much you can pay, maximum amount. And thus, giving you a financial aid package, which in essence reduces the price that you're going to have to pay for the product. Where else do we see first degree price discrimination? Well, I see it every week when I take my mother in law to Chinatown. No one really pays the set prices for a lot of things. All I hear is a lot of yelling in Cantonese back and forth, and her telling me to give the person, a certain amount. I don't know what was said, but I know I'm not paying the same person. She's buying from the same vendors week after week, but she's not paying the same amount week after week. I don't know what the conversation is, but it's obviously some element of first degree price discrimination because that's what the haggling process is. Obviously, we see this in used cars as well, right? Where think about what happens when you buy a used car. I mean, I've typically bought a used car from a person, not from a dealer. I mean, and that's kind of the ultimate form of first degree price discrimination. I have both sold a car and bought a car from private individuals. All you're trying to do there is you're just trying to determine how desperate that person is for the car. And on the other side, how eager that other person is to sell the car. Right? So when I sold the car, I want to get the maximum amount for it. So what did I do? I made sure that that person knew this was an extra car, no rush to sell it. This is the price. I'm not moving from it. If you don't want it, there are others interested. You know, and so I didn't have to negotiate down a great deal because in this case, I was selling a Prius. I saw this person show up in a really big, like, diesel truck, and they were driving every day from Kapolei to town. They really wanted to get a used, a fuel efficient car. And so I knew they were willing to pay a pretty high price. And on the other side of it, that they knew I wasn't going to negotiate down that much. Yeah, I'm a horrible person to buy a car from. On the other side of it, when I first moved to the islands back in 2015, I needed to buy a car. I didn't bring a car with me, and so I looked on Craigslist. I looked on Facebook Marketplace, found a guy selling like a 2002 Corolla that looked really shitty, right? And I don't really care what my car looks like. I'm probably a rare individual that doesn't care what it looks like. So I knew that. And the guy that I bought it from is this crazy guy. His daughter had moved to the mainland, didn't bring the car. They wanted to get rid of the car. The car was not something they drove a lot because it was like an extra car. The guy was really busy, didn't really even have time to sell the car, just wanted to get rid of it and be done with it. Knew he was desperate to sell it, and he knew that I didn't really care that much about the car and what it looked like. So I ended up getting the car relatively cheaply. Why? Yeah, because I know something about price discrimination. For the firm, first degree price discrimination is the gold standard. It's the best thing you can ever do. And first degree price discrimination, none of this is illegal. First degree price discrimination, you don't have to offer the same price to everyone. You really, truly don't. There's no law that stops it. The only law that would stop it would be if I said, you know, I'm going to charge pregnant moms more for something than not, like using something like that as a criteria. But, we have something going beyond even just price discrimination. we have what's called the pink tax, which is that, I buy a razor, my wife buys a razor for shaving. It's made by the same company. Mine is gray, hers is pink, and hers actually costs a lot more for the same number of blades on the razor than mine does. It's unfair. It's just that, I'm not, I don't care what your shaving habits are for both men and women, but I mean, for the most part, men, um, you know, the societal norms of shaving is obviously pretty sexist in nature and generally allows men to go unshaved and it not be looked upon, whereas for women, that might not be the case. And companies take advantage of that, charging women more for something. Um, it's been measured how much it is, just out of curiosity here. Let's just look at this cool picture here. Shaving cream, $5.99, $10. $9.99, $12.50. I'm sorry, shaving cream here. $8.99 versus $12.99. So obviously, the pink tax is alive and in some senses reflective of that discrimination. Oh, look at this one, deodorant, $4.99 versus $6.99. So it obviously exists. Okay. Um, with all price discrimination, we're saying that the underlying product costs the same to produce. So it's not that a woman's razor costs more to produce than a men's razor. Rather, there's a realization that we can extract more surplus from women than men. And so that's exactly what I try to do here. I try to always capture the uh, price. Um, the price is going to be the reservation price. So if we insert a new slide here, let's say we have a monopolist. Here's my demand equals price. Here's my marginal cost. Here's my marginal revenue. Again, what are the rules here? MR equals MC. So that's determining my quantity. And now I go up to price here, but not every customer is going to pay this price. In fact, only the last customer is going to pay that price. And then I'm going to have another price here, another price here, another price here, another price here, such that in this case here, um, I'm actually going to sell as much, as many different ways as I have customers, thus allowing me to charge prices that exceed the marginal cost. Now, the thing is, am I going to stop right here? Or would I be willing to sell this one? Would I be willing to sell this one? I would, because these prices are also exceeding the marginal cost, yet they're not affecting the other customers in the higher price that they're paying. So, in fact, the quantity for, let's call it, the single price monopolist is not the same as the quantity for the first degree discriminator. In fact, the first degree discriminator actually produces the same amount as a perfectly competitive firm. Thus, everything is captured by the firm, which is why I said this is the gold standard. And so, thus, as you can see in this picture here, if they were a single price monopolist, the quantity would have been lower. If they were a single price monopolist, the producer would have captured just area yellow. But by becoming a first degree price discriminator, they additionally capture the purple area. So then they will capture both yellow and purple rather than just yellow. Now, first degree price discrimination is pretty darn hard to pull off. Um, and what happens in reality is, or here as it says, first degree price discrimination in practice, is that it might be difficult to charge every customer a different price, but I could have a series of different prices. And what it would mean is that once I start to deviate from every customer having a different price, I can have customers earning some surplus, some very small amounts of surplus. So now let's talk about, so in first degree price discrimination as a review, every customer pays a different price. And we have examples of that in reality. Now let's talk about second degree price discrimination. This is what we typically know of as the quantity discount. In the quantity discount, basically, I offer, if a customer is willing to buy a larger quantity, I offer them a lower price based on the fact that the marginal cost at that point is lower. So I can, as you can kind of see in the graph here, I have a first block, second block, third block. Let's zoom in here. I have a first block, second block, third block. If the person is willing to go from this quantity to this quantity, I can charge them, instead of price P1, price P2. And the reason why the quantity discount exists is because the costs are lower. And so here you would have just a series of prices based on a few different blocks of the product. It's good for marketing purposes because you can get customers to buy maybe more than they need because they would get that discount. And on the other hand, you can the customer will buy more than they need, but the firm also can capture some of the value that comes from producing larger quantities of the product. And then we have third degree price discrimination. So first degree price discrimination, charge every customer a different price based on their willingness to pay. Second degree price discrimination, that's the quantity discount. Third degree price discrimination is seen a lot. And third degree price discrimination basically means that you find ways to divide customers into groups based on some characteristic. This is, in essence, the senior citizen discount. This is the college student discount. This is the recent graduate discount. This is the Kama Aina discount. Um, it's basically you find a way to determine um, a elasticity of a customer group and then charge the price that they're willing to pay. And so, since you have different groups of customers that have different prices, that different have different elasticities, they're going to be charged different prices. And we're going to look at a question that's like this um, in the problem set. And I'll set this up for you because we do see this obviously quite a bit, this kind of price discrimination occurring. But you basically, again, charge a higher price to an inelastic customer and a lower price to an elastic customer. Oh, sorry, I also forgot here as I'm just going over this. Second degree price discrimination, that would be also why, per unit, things cost less at Sam's Club and Costco, right? You're buying in bulk saves. That is, in essence, second degree price discrimination. And so here, for these customers, you can see here that the I don't know what you call this turquoise demand curve is flatter here than it is here. And what we're saying then is that the flatter the demand curve, the more elastic it is, and that customer should pay a lower price than this bluer line where the customer is more inelastic. In each case, you follow the same rule. Set MR equal to MC, and then you go up to that relevant demand curve to find the price. And they found P1 should be charged for the more inelastic customer, and P2 should be charged for the more elastic customer. And we may also find that you may not sell to all customers. Um, Unfortunately, we in Hawaii find this to be the case sometimes where certain businesses just don't sell their product here because either we, as people from Hawaii, don't care that much about the product, and so thus we're very elastic, um, or it's just so small that no one cares. It's not going to cover the additional cost to doing something. And so we just kind of see a variation of third degree price discrimination with this. Another way to determine whether a customer is elastic or not, basically third degree price discrimination, is the notion of the coupon or the rebate, right? Um, I grew up in a household, for instance, where my mother did cut coupons, and she cut coupons even more when when money was tighter, when we had less of it, which is all the essence of the elastic customer. And so what a company is able to do when it has coupons is it's a very good way to, right, if someone who doesn't care and just wants to buy the good whatever the price, they won't use the coupon, right? Because using a coupon's a pain in the ass. You got to cut it, you got to meet the conditions of it, and then you got to the little bit of like, um, I don't know what you would call it, the little bit of stigma when you go to the cashier and you have to turn in the coupon. It looks kind of cheap, um, as opposed to the person who doesn't. Companies also like coupons because it can be a way for them to promote a new product, and it can also be a way for them to lower the price of a product to promote its use. And so, with some products, you see pretty large differences in the elastic customers versus the inelastic customers. And so, what are we trying to do here? I would want to design a coupon that captures a non user. As you can see here, the non users are a bit more. Um, the non-user of a coupon is a bit more inelastic than the user of a coupon. Sorry, the reverse. Sorry, I'm really sorry about that. The Let me repeat that phrase again. The user of the coupon is more elastic than the non-user of a coupon. That is, as you do see it here, um, you would see um, larger numbers in absolute value terms or more negative numbers. So these are more elastic, and so these are the users of the coupons as opposed to the more inelastic. And we obviously see in terms of like airfares, you see this as well, where I can add different characteristics of the plane ticket and whatnot that can determine whether a person is more elastic or not. There used to be this really cool, I don't even know if I can find it here, but there was once this really cool um, yeah, I'm gonna click on images, could be offensive. You never know. You laugh, but you never know. There used to be this really cool picture. No, I'm not going to find it. And as I scroll more into pictures, something offensive could come up. So do I stop or do I not? I'm going to keep looking until I find what I want. Um, oh, look at this one. This is a cool picture. That's kind of cool. What if Netflix were to use price discrimination? If you want to watch a movie or not. Actually, we do see price discrimination in if you're using like Amazon to buy like a movie um, to stream. You will see that like obviously newer released movies cost more than not. Mm, okay, I'm not going to find it here, but there used to be this really cool picture where they showed all the seats on a recent flight and what all the different seats ended up costing. But I don't see it here, so okay, let's get rid of that. Now, this is different than let's just use this as a transition point here. This is not the same thing as price discrimination. Um, the key condition to price discrimination is that different customers pay different prices for the same good. With Intertemporal price discrimination and peak load pricing, that's not exactly price discrimination. And so I disagree with the book and its um, in it calling this price discrimination. It's not. So what? Let me give an example. So I installed solar panels um, on our. I didn't install. Sorry, I hired someone to install solar panels on our house. And when we bought the solar panels, we also bought these like big batteries, basically, that store the power generated during the day. And I paid it for it all, and it was all said and done. And then I got this um, call from the electric company, from HECO, um, and it was what they wanted me to do was join this program. And what the program would do is, now I was generating my own electric. Um, I made enough electric to supply the house for the day. And now, what Hawaiian Electric wanted to do is they wanted to buy power from me, but they wanted at a particular time. In fact, what they're going to do is they're going to extract the power from me from 6 to 8 p.m. Why? Because that's when the sun goes down and people who didn't buy a battery are going to start using power from the grid, and all the other people are using power from the grid. And so the electric company is finding itself short on power. And to encourage me to sign up and sell them the electric, for electric that I sell them at the peak times, they will pay me more than at non peak times. But this is not price discrimination because basically the electric is more valuable to the electric company from 6 to 8 p.m. because they've got all these customers who need it. And so in some sense it um, charging different customers different prices based on when they're going to use the product means that you capture additional revenue for the fact that marginal costs are higher at that particular point in time. It'd be like if I want to use the road during the day versus late at night. I should have to pay more to use the road during the day than late at night because that's right when everyone would be using the thing, right? Using the roads to go to work and whatnot. But the cost could be higher as well, right? There's more crowding on the roads, greater strain on the road because it is so crowded. And so I could charge customers different prices to use it. And that's what we see here. We divide the customers into different groups. So it's kind of like third degree price discrimination, but, and this is important, but the marginal cost curve, this is kind of an error in the book that I disagree with. The marginal cost curve is not going to be horizontal. In fact, there'd be a different marginal cost curve for the different time periods. And that's kind of what we see here, especially with peak load pricing, is that the um, costs are changing and consequently I charge higher prices to reflect those different costs. Okay, again, I'm going to skip this. Just skip the examples. Okay, now we turn to the two-part tariff. Um, in the two-part tariff, we charge two different fees. We charge um, an entry fee and we charge a usage fee. Um, a good example of a two-part tariff is cell phones and cell phone service. It is typically the case that if you're willing to um, sign up for cell phone service and agree to a contract for 2 years, you're probably going to get the phone for free. Why? Because what they're going to do is they're going to charge you basically zero entry fee. And you get the phone for free, but the idea is you're going to pay a lot more usage fee. For me, um, my cell phone service is actually pretty much described by this graph. I pay basically full price for my phone, and then I pay a lower usage fee that more approximates the marginal cost. So the company that sells the cell phone is capturing this entire entry fee, and then the usage fee is basically set at the marginal cost. But look at what that does. It actually allows the company to capture all of the surplus. Now, this is for a two-part tariff for only a single kind of customer. What we mean by that is that the customers all use the product in a rather similar way. The thing is, with something like cell phone service, for instance, not all customers are the same. So think about the ways that my cell phone service is a prepaid phone, and it's actually a division of Verizon. So I use the company's called Visible. Visible uses the Verizon network. It's owned by Verizon. You can pay for your cell phone service on the app, um, on the Verizon app. So it's like I'm a Verizon customer, but it's not exactly the same. I can't go to the Verizon store to get service. I have to use the app. The you know I pay for it month by month, and if I don't pay for it for a certain month, I don't get any service. I'm billed in advance, not after the fact. And that same company, Verizon, sells it to my wife, who gets it through her firm, which probably pays a much higher price for the exact same service. And they also sell the product to senior citizens who use the phone differently and get basically a senior citizen discount. So instead of thinking about this as a two-part tariff for the single customer, we could think of it as a two-part tariff when there are multiple kinds of customers. When it's a single customer here, entry fee is set at the consumer surplus amount, and then the usage fee is set at marginal cost. With the two different kinds of customers, um, I'm now going to set a entry fee that's going to only be the amount of consumer surplus as the lower demand curve. And my usage fee is going to slightly exceed my marginal costs. Again, all of this, though, in some sense, is price discrimination only because I'm trying to extract um, consumer surplus. Okay, and then you could just imagine expanding this to infinity, um, and still being able to charge um, both an entry fee as well as a usage fee. And they give the example here of the cell phone service, and those look like ancient phones. Okay, let me see this here. Let's go this. Okay, I'm going to pause for right now. Okay, now the final part to this idea of charging different customers different prices is the act of bundling. And we do see that quite a bit as well. Um, uh, um, the idea here is that you bundle two goods together and basically find a way to force the customer to buy both goods when they may not. So, you see this with what? I mean, you see this with things like, buying. So, for instance, if you go to McDonald's, right, you can get a bundle, right, or they call it a meal, which would be, French fries, a drink, and whatever sandwich you're going to have. Now, if you bought each of those items individually, they would cost more. But the idea is that some customer may not like fries. I don't know, think they're too salty or whatever. Or maybe they don't really care for the drink because they just drink water, so the drink doesn't matter much to them. But if the drink only costs like 20 cents extra, maybe then they would buy the drink. And what that does is it allows the firm to capture, even in the case of the drink, 20 cents more. Or in this case here, as this example is kind of showing here, is that you've got customers who each value these two different movies very differently. They apparently really like, I don't even know if these are real movies. I mean, I know Gone with the Wind is. I don't know what Getting Gertie's Garter. I haven't seen either of these movies, whether the other movie exists or not. But the idea is that the Gone with the Wind movie can is wants to be seen more than Getting Gertie's Garter. And if you just let customers buy what they want, they may only go to the first film. But if you can bundle these two goods together, you could get more customers to go to the other film as well. And then as a whole, capture even more revenue. And we see that here. Um, and the way that a firm really maximizes its benefit um, to bundling the goods um, is when the goods are negatively correlated with each other. Because um, if they're negatively um, correlated with each other, the idea is that you can use the high value of the one good to get people to buy the other good because it's not seen as costing that much more. If they were going to buy the two goods already, there's no need to give them a discount, at least with bundling. Bundling is designed to get the customer who wouldn't buy it otherwise to buy it because it's bundled with the other thing. And so, what we try to do here, as we kind of see here, is that I have a reservation price for the one product, and I have a reservation price for the second product. And what I'm going to do is combine both of those goods together and say you can get these products for $10 for each of them. And so that's really what we're trying to do here is if we think of this in terms of quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4, and for in each of these being our reservation prices, what you're really trying to do is push customers from quadrants 2 and 4 to quadrant 1, thus capturing both customers when previously they would have only captured one. And obviously, you're trying to avoid quadrant 3, where you lose all your customers. And you're simplifying that even a little bit more here, right? Because if we go back here, right, if I didn't bundle the goods, obviously I want to be in quadrant one. But the problem is that each of those two products have to have a sufficiently higher reservation price. What bundling does is it eases up the four quadrant space into two quadrants. Either they buy the bundle or not. And all I have to do to get that is all that I have to do is make sure that the bundle is at least um, as expensive as the two reservation prices together for those customers. And again, if they're positively correlated, as I said over here, if they're positively correlated, um, there's some gain, but there's not a great deal of gain to the bundling. Again, what you're really trying to do is get a customer who wasn't going to buy the good otherwise to buy it, and that you get with the negatively correlated. Which is why when we think of if we think of going back to McDonald's again, and we just think of um, like French fries and a sandwich, those two things are generally pretty positively correlated with one another. And so, generally speaking, there's not that much of a discount. Really, where you would see it is if two things were pretty strongly negatively correlated. And that really allows you to capture the most surplus. I don't know why they keep talking about this movie. I'm going to skip it for now. Now, the question that every company then faces as they're marketing these products is whether they're going to do mixed bundling or pure bundling. In other words, are you going to allow customers to buy it individually as well as a package, or can they only buy it as a package? Um, what do I mean by that? I'm trying to think of a real life thing where um, just trying to think here. Um, Trying to think of did it give me an example that'd be even better if they do? Let's see here. Yeah. I guess that's true. Yeah. I mean, I guess that is true. Okay, so we'll go with that example. So, as inspired by the book, let's go back to our McDonald's example. I can buy the French fries and the sandwich separately, or I can buy them in a bundle. That would be mixed bundling. Pure bundling only as a package. Um, and that's still what I'm trying to think of an example of. Um, oh, I know. Pure bundling would be like the breakfast platter at McDonald's, right? I get the eggs, I get the rice, I get the spam, and I get the Portuguese sausage. I can't just buy the Portuguese sausage separately or just the rice separately. It's all in a package, and I have to buy the package. Now, why? How does a firm make this decision of whether to how to do whether to do mixed bundling or pure bundling? That's all going to depend on um, the marginal costs um, and what those customers' reservation prices are relative to those marginal costs. Um, if the marginal costs, um, at least um, for the pure bundling, if the only way I can capture sales is by forcing people to buy the bundle, just because of the way that the marginal costs are shaped, then I will only offer the bundle, only the package deal. But if the marginal costs, if the reservation prices are high enough to cover the marginal costs for the individualized products, then I'll probably do some mixed bundling because I'm going to then capture customers who only want that one product, but then are also willing to buy the bundle. And we see these kinds of things here. Okay. Um, then we have what are called the tie-in sales. Tie-in sales, or in this case, we're calling it tying. In a tie-in sale, we basically require a customer um, to buy one good in order to buy another. Um, it, I guess, one way to think of a tie-in sale would be, and the example they give here is that for instance, the franchise um, has to buy the products from the main company. In my wife's case, she's with an investment firm and she has to do all of her trades on the investment firm's network. She can't go out and use some other firm's markets. And essentially, what the tie-in sale allows you to do um, is it allows you to basically um, extract value from the use of the item. Um, and so you use the tie-in sale when you're concerned about you know maintaining a high level of quality with the use of the product. You want to make sure that customers don't overuse the product. Um, or that you can meter their demand, so that you can best supply the product. Okay. I mean, they have a little bit of a discussion here of advertising, but we're not going to cover that in the problem set. So, and neither are we going to cover the vertically integrated firm. Okay. So I think that takes care of my favorite chapter, pricing models.